Picture a lion cub, so small he can barely hold his own weight, wandering the savannah with his stomach growling like distant thunder. That was Scarface, still nameless, scarless, unglorified. Alongside his brothers, Marani, Sikio, and Hunter, he grew up as a rejected nomad in the Maasai Mara, where life gives no breaks. You know that heat that makes the air shimmer on the horizon? That's the merciless sun they faced, with no territory, no coalition to call home. Their mother, a brave lioness, hunted alone, her weary eyes glinting in the twilight. But many nights the cubs slept hungry, listening to the wind moan through the bushes. Ever felt like the universe was testing you? For these cubs, every day was a trial by fire. Driven out by older lions, the brothers learned early that survival demands sharp claws and a steady heart. Scarface, the smallest, had a spark in his eyes, as if he knew fate had something bigger in store. They hunted together, shared scraps of carcasses, and faced hyenas cackling in the dark. Their shrill laughs sliced the night like a taunt. One night, under the silver glow of a full moon, Scarface led his brothers to steal prey from a pack of hyenas. The grass brushed their legs, the air thick with tension, their hearts pounding like drums. He charged first, a cub against beasts, and secured the meal. Can you imagine the stakes? 4 young lions alone against a world that doesn't forgive. But here's the thing. They started planning, fighting as a team, driven by a loyalty not even hunger could break. That bond kept them alive. While other lions fought for pride, Scarface and his brothers forged a pact, as if the Mara's stars sealed their oath. Every scratch, every desperate sprint was shaping them for something epic. Who'd have thought rejected cubs could dream so big? If you're hooked on stories of triumph like this, drop a like and subscribe to catch more, because the next twist in Scarface's life will give you chills. How did he earn the name the whole world would know? Stick with me. This is just getting started. The savannah's no place for those afraid of scratches, and Scarface learned that the hard way. Now grown, with a mane starting to frame his face like a dark halo, he and his brothers, the soon-to-be musketeers, were ready to stop wandering. But the Maasai Mara demands a steep price for respect. One afternoon, with the air smelling of dry grass and dust, a battle changed everything. A rival lion, his claws gleaming like knives in the sun, came to defend his turf. You know that moment, when your heart races and the world slows down. Scarface faced the enemy without flinching, his eyes blazing with a courage that seemed to defy the sun itself. The clash was brutal. Roars tore through the silence, the ground shaking with each lunge. The rival was bigger, heavier, but Scarface had his brothers by his side. In a flash, amid flying grass and rising dust, he took a hit that defined him. A claw struck his face, ripping away his left eyelid. Blood dripped, warm, mixing with the red earth, the pain burning like embers. Can you feel the weight of that? But here's the kicker. Instead of falling, he rose, fiercer, as if the universe shouted, "You're more than this." The scar that remained wasn't just a mark. It was a trophy, a cry of resilience. Local guides, awestruck by his grit, named him Scarface, a name that would echo like legend. That scar became his signature. Tourists pointed, cameras clicked, and the lion with the half-closed eye gained fame. He wasn't just strong. He had a charisma that made you root for him, like every glance told a story. Once a filmmaker caught him on a hill, the wind ruffling his mane, the sun gilding the savannah behind him. That image spread worldwide, splashed across magazines and screens. Who hasn't looked at a mark on their own body and thought of the battles they've won? Scarface wore his with pride, leading his brothers with a confidence that said, "No one's stopping us." Because now comes the part where Scarface and the musketeers claim what's theirs. Was the savannah ready for these kings? Let's find out. In 2011, the Maasai Mara was about to meet its new kings. Scarface, with his legendary scar and a mane that rippled like black smoke, led the musketeers, Marani, Sikio, and Hunter, on a mission that seemed impossible. The marsh territory, a prized slice of the savannah, was held by older lions, beasts who didn't give ground easily. You know that sound of twigs snapping under heavy paws? That's how the brothers moved, stealthy, their eyes glinting in the dawn's half-light. The air was thick, a faint scent of dew mingling with tension, as if the savannah itself knew something big was coming. Ever felt like you were on the edge of something huge? Scarface knew this was his moment. The battle for the marsh was a display of strength and strategy. The musketeers lacked the rivals' experience, but had something greater: unity. Scarface roared, a sound that made the earth throb as his brothers flanked the enemy. In a moment of pure chaos, with the rising sun staining the scene red, Scarface leaped onto an older lion, his claws sinking into flesh. The rivals snarled, but the brothers struck as one, a deadly dance of fangs and muscle. The older lions, caught off guard, fled, leaving the marsh in the paws of the young conquerors. Pause for a second and picture it. 4 lions, panting, the savannah breeze brushing their manes, gazing at the horizon now theirs. Doesn't it give you goosebumps? They followed in the footsteps of legends like Notch, a coalition that had already marked the Mara with its dominance. With the territory secured, Scarface became the coalition's symbol. His presence drew lionesses and repelled rivals. He patrolled the marsh with steady steps, as if each footprint was a pledge of leadership. One night, under a sky studded with stars, he roared so loudly the sound carried for miles, as if telling the savannah, "We're here." Who'd have thought a rejected cub would come this far? But could this reign last? Stay with me, because Scarface's story is about to get even more incredible. Ruling the Maasai Mara is like holding a thunderbolt. It takes strength, courage, and a bit of luck. Scarface, with his black mane gleaming like polished coal, didn't just hold that thunderbolt. He mastered it for a decade. Most male lions rule for 2, maybe 3 years, but Scarface laughed in the face of odds. You know that fresh river scent after a flood? That's how the marsh smelled when he crossed crocodile-infested waters without a second thought, as if nature had struck a deal with him. Once he swam against the current, water splashing around him, crocodiles circling just to defend his territory. The pride's lionesses watched, their eyes shining with respect, as he emerged, mane dripping, solid as a rock. Ever met someone who seems to defy the impossible? Scarface was that kind of legend. Leading the musketeers wasn't just about roars. Scarface had a way of keeping the coalition tight, like an older brother who knows when to play and when to bare his fangs. He faced rivals, protected cubs, and drew lionesses with pure magnetism. But the savannah always takes its toll. One by one, Marani, Sikio, and Hunter fell. Disease, battles, the weight of nature. Each loss was a blow, and Scarface, despite his kingly heart, felt the emptiness. One night he stood on a hill, the wind's low howl grieving with him. Close your eyes and imagine a lone lion, gazing at the savannah he loved, stars reflected in his eyes. Doesn't it tug at your heart? Still, he didn't give up. With resilience that seemed otherworldly, Scarface ruled, his scar telling tales of glory. His longevity became a miracle, proof that strength comes from within. Who hasn't wanted to prove they can go beyond what's expected? But how did such a grand lion become a global star? The next part will surprise you, because the world was about to meet the king. Scarface wasn't just the king of the Maasai Mara. He was a global celebrity, a lion who stole the spotlight without trying. With his striking scar and a mane that seemed to soak up the sunset's glow, he drew BBC and National Geographic filmmakers like bees to honey. You know that sound of camera shutters clicking nonstop? That's what rang out when tourists spotted Scarface patrolling the marsh, each step a living story. Once, a filmmaker trailed him for days, capturing him resting under a tree, the savannah's heat rising in waves, birdsong humming in the background. The filmmaker said he'd never seen an animal with such presence, ever seen someone command a room without a word. That was Scarface's charisma. The documentaries told his saga, the outcast who became a leader, the warrior who crossed rivers and faced rivals with a look that said, "Try your luck." One film showed him shielding cubs from hyenas, his silhouette against an orange sky, looking like an artist's painting. Take a deep breath and picture it. A lion, alone, facing the night to save the little ones, the hyenas' cries fading as they retreated. Isn't that the kind of image that lingers in your soul? Those moments turned Scarface into more than an animal. He was a symbol of resilience, inspiring people thousands of miles away. Folks laughed, cried, cheered for him, like he was a friend. But fame didn't change him. While cameras captured his glory, Scarface stayed loyal, guarding the marsh with the same devotion. His story became a call to never give up. Who hasn't felt an animal understands their soul? What would the end of such a great king look like? Stay with me, because Scarface's final days are as powerful as all he lived through. The savannah never warns when the end is near, but Scarface seemed to know. In 2020, at 14 years old, he carried the weight of a life full of battles. His mane, once jet black, was thinning, his steps slower, echoing like soft rain on dry leaves. The scent of parched herbs rose from the earth at dusk, wrapping the marsh as Scarface walked, frailer but with the same spark in his eyes. You know that ache when you see someone you love weaken? Scarface, without his musketeer brothers, felt the savannah's loneliness but never bowed his head. He still patrolled the marsh, legs trembling. Once guides saw him face a young rival lion, roaring with a strength that seemed to come from another era. The youngster backed off, and Scarface stood there, panting, his mane swaying like a tattered flag in the breeze. But time is an enemy. No one beats. On June 11, 2020, Scarface lay under an acacia, the earth's warmth cradling his weary body. No fight, no predators. He passed in peace, a natural death so rare it felt like nature's gift. Picture this: a king surrounded by the hum of insects, resting as if the Mara were lulling him, the sky splashed with orange and purple. Isn't it almost poetic? His resilience carried him further than anyone dreamed. Guides who'd followed him for years felt the void. Tourists who saw him in documentaries wept from afar. But Scarface's passing wasn't just a loss, it was the close of an epic cycle. Who hasn't wanted to live with such courage until their last breath? How did such a grand lion leave an impact the world would never forget? Stick with me, because his legacy is far from over. When Scarface passed, the Maasai Mara seemed to hold its breath. But his roar kept echoing, not just in the savannah but worldwide. He wasn't just a lion, he was an icon who transcended nature. You know that murmur of awe in a crowd? That's how guides, tourists, and filmmakers spoke of him, sharing tales of a king whose scar said more than 1,000 words. Once, a local guide told how Scarface, even in old age, stopped a buffalo herd with a single roar, saving cubs in danger. The ground shook and the buffalo scattered as if they knew a king stood there. Ever seen someone leave a mark that feels eternal? Scarface did that. BBC and National Geographic documentaries kept his legend alive, showing a lion who faced rejection, battles, and loss, but never lost his leadership. People across the globe in their homes felt their hearts race watching Scarface cross rivers or defend his turf. One famous scene caught him roaring in the rain, water streaming through his mane, as if nature itself crowned him. Picture this for a second. A kid watching, eyes wide, dreaming of being that brave. Isn't it amazing how an animal can inspire so much? His story became a call to fight, even against the worst odds. In the Mara, his legacy lives in the lionesses he protected, the cubs carrying his genes, and the guides' tales. Scarface showed that true strength lies in the impact we leave. Who hasn't wanted to be remembered for something bigger than themselves? But how can this story change how we see the world? Let's wrap this journey with a thought that'll stay with you. And so, the savannah held Scarface's final roar, but his story still pulses, like the heart of the Maasai Mara. He wasn't just a lion, he was a master of resilience, a leader who showed strength comes from within. even when the world tries to break you. You know that silence after a storm. When the air feels lighter, that's how the Mara feels now, carrying the footprints of a king who defied death for 14 years. From rejected cub to documentary star, Scarface faced battles, lost brothers, earned scars, but never lost his leader's spirit. Ever stopped to think what an animal can teach us? Every step in the savannah, every glance at the horizon, was a reminder that nature is more than survival. It's inspiration. One night, guides heard his last roar echo, as if he told the Mara, "I lived." Close your eyes and feel it. A lone lion under a starry sky, leaving a legacy time can't erase. Isn't that the kind of story that makes you want to be braver? Scarface gave us a simple, powerful lesson. Sometimes the greatest heroes have 4 paws and a heart that won't quit. Now it's your turn. Have you ever had an animal that changed your life, taught you about strength or loyalty? Share it in the comments, because those stories connect us. If Scarface's journey warmed your heart, the next video YouTube suggests will move you even more. Don't miss it. Scarface showed us that, in the savannah or in life, what matters is leaving a mark that echoes forever. Until the next story, keep chasing your own courage.